close a whale was sighted breaching near the Cape May-Lewes Ferry Monday. Video taken by Meghan Palmer, Cape May-Lewes Ferry pilot. Cape May-Lewes Ferry submitted video whether they run or drift up into it. Sooner or later every boater will find themselves in water too shallow for the draft of their boat, and planning ahead for the inevitable grounding can be the difference between such an event being just a little inconvenience or a costly experience that ruins the rest of their season. So let's just say that you're cruising down the bay and everything is going along just fine until all of a sudden, clunk clunk clunk, and your motor starts thumping on the bottom and you're being thrown into the steering wheel from a rapidly decelerating boat. Without panicking, you need to react quickly. In most cases, the first reaction should be to pull the throttle back quickly and get your engine in neutral so that the prop is not damaged and you will not be driven farther up into the shallows. Once the boat is stopped, you can assess where you need to be and how you're going to get there. It could be that just moving over a few feet to the left or right will get you back in the channel. If you can't tell where the deeper water is, just keep in mind that the water behind your boat was deep enough to get you there in the first place, so if you can pull a U-turn and go back the way you came, you should be okay. In many cases, returning to deep water is as simple as trimming the motor up and slowly motoring out of the shallows. Grinding a boat out of shallow water is a sure way to damage the motor, so if the water is so shallow that the lower unit needs to be trimmed up so high that the prop is blowing water, sand, or mud up into the air, it's time to shut the motor off and manually push the boat clear. Which brings me to the point that everyone who navigates in the back bays should be prepared to push their boat out of shallow water if necessary. When the water is warm, being prepared for such a task might require nothing more than a willingness to step out of the boat, get your feet wet, and push. In the winter and early spring, boaters will need be able to stay dry in the process, so tall boots, waders, or some sort of paddle or push-pole to shove with can be lifesavers. Upon grounding, it's important for a skipper to make a quick assessment of which way Mother Nature is trying to move the boat. If the boat wants to drift into the shallows, with the engine off, an anchor can be used to hold the boat in position by walking it out toward the deeper water and setting it by hand. More. Former Surfrider chair, Mid-Atlantic musician Sybil dies after car crash. More. Striped bass fishing season opens with new rules for size limits, hooks. If the wind and/or current want to move the boat away from the shallow water, it might be as simple as trimming the motor up and letting her drift. With small boats, it might also be necessary to get one or more people out of the boat to lighten the load and allow it to float higher in shallower water. When someone is hard aground, one of the worst things they can do for their motor is to leave it running, because the water pump intake is likely going to suck up a bunch of sand or muck into the engine, possibly wiping out the impeller and clogging up passages for the cooling water. Getting stuck is one thing, frying an engine is a whole lot more hassle and expense. Of course, the best thing to do is not to run aground in the first place, and knowing how to read the water and using some common sense by operating extra cautiously when in unfamiliar territory. But as I previously mentioned, finding the bottom is just a part of inshore boating. It happens to the best of us, so a little prior planning for the inevitable can go a long way in getting us safely and even gracefully back to deep water and on our way.